Hello again, podcast legends. Episode 10. Would you believe it? We're in double figures. We are flying. And thank you for being here, however long you have, whether it's your first or your 10th. I really appreciate you listening. Today's topic, pelvic floor dysfunction. Not only is it hard to say, it's hard to talk about. It has been for years. I know up until about 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't even mention the phrase pelvic floor. Look at me now, going deep, diving deep with my guest today, Claire Mockridge. We first met 5 or 6 years ago. I was on one of her workshops that discussed this matter. It opened my eyes to it when I had my first daughter, Ella, and it's just grown more and more fascinating on me. And she's here today to talk about the issues that many people are going through. Women particularly we're going to talk about today, and how she's helping those women overcome the issues they're going through, using exercise, using movement, and some quite revolutionary techniques to feel better and ultimately move forward happier. And she's here today to share as much as she can in the time period I've got her for. I hope it helps. I hope the knowledge she brings you today is applicable to your life, and you can go home and maybe do some of the things she mentions. Top 3 tips she goes through at the end, really, really useful, particularly. And the foot exercises she talks about, another interesting part. But anyway, enough from me. Let's crack on with the episode. Don't forget to subscribe, comment and review if you feel it's worth it. Thank you. Claire, welcome.
Welcome, Frank. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you in blue. You get extra points from the start.
The branding in blue. It's got to be done, isn't it?
So we're going to talk about the pelvic floor today. That's the topic of discussion. Something you're obviously an expert in, a field you cover regularly. But before that, please explain who you are, Claire, so the world knows.
Sure. Okay. So my name's Claire Mockridge, if you've not met me before. And as Frank said there, one of my specialisms is actually in pelvic floor dysfunction rehab. And I've worked with the pre and postnatal client for 12 years now. And it was kind of, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years in that I realized that a lot of the exercises that I was giving to my clients, just in a basic kind of fitness, exercise environment, wasn't really making a lot of change to their pelvic floor symptoms. And so then I kind of went down the Pilates sort of route there, which is often a fairly sort of organic, sort of blend of fitness and Pilates sort of instruction. Then, Pilates sort of helped, with some of my client symptoms. And then it wasn't really until I discovered the more biomechanics, full body approach to helping, men and women with pelvic floor dysfunction, that I got a system, in place that actually really works.
Got it. I'm glad you mentioned the male and female, because I was going to ask you, us men are scared to mention the phrase pelvic floor. Yeah. Usually.
It's kind of like going down the uncomfortable aisle at the supermarket, isn't it? When your wife goes, I need tampons. Oh, please don't send me down there. It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Exactly like that. So can you explain in layman's terms what a pelvic floor is and how it may be the same or indifferent for men and women?
Sure. Okay. So the pelvic floor is sometimes termed like a sling set of muscles. If you think about the muscles underneath the pelvis is probably the best way to describe it. We shouldn't really be experiencing dysfunction in the pelvic floor to the rate that we are at the moment. So that's kind of problems when, say someone sort of jumps, and leaks a bit of urine, or even poo, actually, or like the sneeze pee sort of stuff, sneeze wee sort of stuff. There are differences, I suppose, between the male and the female pelvic floor. The easiest way to distinguish the two, in women there are 3 exits, in men there's only 2. Obviously in the female reproductive system there's like different reasons why that is. So men only have 2 exits and women have that third one, because obviously we need to be growing babies and actually getting them out of ourselves as well. So that's why we have, am I allowed to drop the V word and say vagina? Yeah, we need that exit as well. So that's kind of the rough difference between the male and the female pelvic floor. So is that kind of a good answer there?
I like it, and it explains that you are definitely better humans. I hear that. 3-2 is a win.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no, because actually sometimes having more exits means more things can go wrong.
Well, this is why we're here, I guess, because you predominantly work with women, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do see men though, for different sort of pelvic floor dysfunction.
Today we're handing down the women route because
Sure.
I know there's a lot more to talk about on that front,
Mm-hmm.
and I just know from experience with clients in the gym they are the more likely, certainly after having children, to experience issues. So I'd love you to explain what maybe the most common issues in a gym environment might be, and some signs to know you are, what's the phrase, dysfunctioning or having dysfunction in your pelvic floor?
Yeah, having problems, having weakness, dysfunction. So yeah, probably the most common form of pelvic floor problem is what's called stress incontinence. So you only have to watch a few programs on television. During the advert break, there's sometimes an advert that sort of almost like plays on the fact that it's actually acceptable to have a whoops moment. Do you know those ones? Yeah. And yeah, so a whoops moment is basically where, you laugh, you cough, you sneeze, or in a gym environment would be where you jump or hop or do some high impact exercise, for example, and a little bit of leakage occurs. So you either wet yourself, or actually it can be fecal incontinence as well. So you kind of, both passages can leak at the same time or individually. So that is not normal. We should not be having things falling out of ourselves at the rate that they are. So although it's quite common for women to leak during exercise, it is most definitely not normal.
Got it. So that's a clear sign. You need to do something about it. So let's take that client then who discovers this issue, finds hopefully someone like yourself who knows what they're doing. Can you summarize? I know it's difficult to do because everyone's different. Summarize a path from there to functioning well.
Okay. The first thing I would say is try and work out what movement, exercise, whether it's bending, squatting, lifting heavy weights, whatever the exercise or movement is that's causing that sneeze wee to occur. That would be like actually noticing what it is you're doing wrong is sort of step one. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
And I don't like to put a complete blank or blanket on avoiding exercise, because that's not really the way forward. But you certainly need to either avoid the exercise for the short term whilst you're in this rehabilitation phase, or perform the movement better. And sometimes that can, I'm sure when you're, upping the weights with your clients, you're really conscious of their out breath on the exertion, that sort of stuff. So when they're going up, higher reps, or just at that, point where they're reaching fatigue, you've got to then get those teaching points in and say, breathe out when that load is applied. So technique could be improved would be another point. So I'm not saying you have to avoid the exercise, but then when you go and see a trainer and they tell you that this out breath thing should be occurring, and you're still leaking, it's like not making any change to your symptoms, then you need to step back to that step one, which would be avoidance of the actual movement that's causing the dysfunction.
Got it. So it may be a case of realising the exercises you enjoy aren't right for you at this moment, taking a step back and going. So how would you do that? Say, because that would be a common thing. You find out in a gym environment, you've got this trainer like me telling you to lift as heavy as you can, right? You're going for it, you're trying to impress him, and then all of a sudden you realise you've got an issue, and it's a point where you say, I need to stop this exercise now. I'm going to go back to see someone different and work somehow differently. Are there exercises you do that actually make it better?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think with my biomechanics training and from the full body approach really that I take to rehabilitating clients with things like abdominal separation and pelvic floor dysfunction, actually looking at posture. I don't really use the word posture in the sense, but for the people listening to the podcast, it'll make more, make more sense. So actually noticing how you stand, noticing how you walk, noticing how you sit. These, 2 or 3 simple adjustments to the skeleton mean that there is less friction on the joint. So biomechanics, put sort of simply, would be some of the negative words with biomechanics would be things like torque, friction, tension, wear and tear of the joints, osteoarthritis. And if you can load your skeleton in a better way, then it means that the muscles attached to the skeleton actually function better.
Love that.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I'm trying to keep that as simple as possible.
Like that. I took that as get the skeleton right and the muscles will be happier. And you'll do that through awareness in daily life. Also, as I know, because I've been on one of your courses, which we can talk about, very conscious of how you're holding your body through daily living and with exercise can make a huge difference for a lot of people, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So even kind of knowing where the foot is, you know, sort of relative to the pelvis, can make a massive difference to the technique and, as you said, the function of the muscles in the pelvis. I think I need to kind of touch on fairly early that a lot of people with pelvic floor dysfunction don't have very strong glute muscles. So the glutes are your backside, your bot. And I kind of term this like flat arse syndrome. Haven't trademarked it, but you do see, sometimes people come into my clinic and you know the scenario where, you know, you see, look at their back and it's like their back just extends into the backs of their legs. There's just like no booty there at all. That's the flat arse syndrome. So one of the keys to improving pelvic floor function is build yourself a bot.
Booty training. We love a bit of that, Claire. Yeah. But that's what I found interesting with how you did things from a Pilates, because I went to your course expecting traditional Pilates in the sense of I'm going to be lying on the floor, I'm going to be doing some abdominal stuff. But almost immediately we were upright and doing things to wake up our booty. So that is intriguing. If anyone hasn't looked into that style or how you do things, look into it. Because presumably, Claire, would you say if you purely did floor exercises, which a lot of my clients do, purely laid on the floor or did exercises in that way because you're trying to isolate, let's say, your core, as we call it, are you missing a trick? Would you encourage people to get up and move a bit more from an exercise point of view, I mean, or not?
Yes. Yes. A lot of so again, I have a system. So every client, well, pretty much every client that comes to see me with pelvic floor dysfunction gets the same roughly 1 to 12 exercises. So I have levels of exercises that clients do, and they'll get, you know, say maybe 5 of that first 12 set of beginner exercises to do, and not one of them is lying on their back.
Got it. But it's a point I wanted to bring up because that's your difference. And I think from just general experience of speaking to people who aren't aware of it, they tend to believe when you need to work, say, a pelvic floor, if I went into a gym, I'm going to be on the floor and lifting my legs about, and I just see a gap in that.
Certainly with the rate that we have pelvic floor dysfunction, I think sometimes it's just useful to have a different approach. So yeah, glute strength is one key thing. I also look a lot at the foot mechanics and how the foot affects pelvic floor function as well.
We have to talk about, because you are one of the only people I know who wears Vibrams as frequently or more frequently than me. You're way ahead of me. Vibrams, for anyone who doesn't know, is those 5-finger shoes, the shoes that show our toes off. You wear them throughout the day, am I right in saying?
Well, yeah, because do you teach in community halls, village halls, or have done? Never done?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you'll appreciate this, right? So you don't really want to walk around a village church hall straight after like a, you know, sort of parent and toddler group have been in, because there's like mashed like raisins in the floor and stuff, isn't there? There's always something on the floor. I've been to both
of those things, yeah. I've been the during and the after. So I've made the mess and I've been annoyed by the mess.
Exactly, yeah. So to protect my foot a little bit, I suppose, really, from like squashing a raisin in between my toes, I wear Vibrams when I teach my Pilates classes, yeah.
Got it. But it's basically because you like the barefoot style. And there is a movement to that. I'm a fan of it during exercise. Why do you do that? Is it just a comfort thing, or is there a physiological reason you like to do that?
Well, it's a long story, which I'll keep very short, but I have a history of 5 years of foot pain. And And the mainstream, get physio, get custom-made insoles. I did that for 5 years, okay, and that did not help my foot pain at all. So I thought there has to be another answer here. There has to be some answers that I'm not missing, because I was, still doing some high impact exercise work, for clients and stuff like that at the time. And you know what it's like, you're on your feet a lot as a personal trainer or fit pro, aren't you? And you do a lot of steps walking around, and yeah, my feet were not in a good way. So that's when I kind of found out really more about the biomechanics sort of stuff. And the best thing I could have done was actually wean myself off the insoles and strengthen and mobilize the foot. So the connection between tightness in the foot and tightness in the pelvic floor has been proven. Yeah, there's evidence to kind of even suggest that what the ankle does mobility-wise and how the pelvic floor functions when someone walks or runs or moves is also evident there as well. When you walk uphill or you walk upstairs, every single time you do that, you should not be missing out on some butt cheek work. And every time you walk upstairs, you should be driving that back leg behind you and engaging the glute. And if you follow the, so the leg down through the knee, down through the shin, down to the ankle and the foot, how the foot operates during gait affects the glute, which affects pelvic floor. That's the simplest way as I can put it.
That was a brilliant way of putting it. And
is that okay?
Yeah, and I'm always trying to explain that. And it goes back to what you're saying about getting up off the floor and doing exercise that connects these things, because everything is, in a simple message, everything is connected, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we deal with people with knee pain, it's often that. It's the same sort of process. Like, how's your skeleton looking? Bit funky? Well, let's sort that out first. Let's get you walking properly and using your butt when you go up the stairs. Yep. And from what you're saying today, it's almost like the pelvic floor is part of this equation, and you would go to the skeleton and then to the foot potentially to kind of fix that, the pattern or the connection. There's a little party trick that you've got, and whether you know you've got it or not, but I will remember you for something you did with your feet, and I couldn't do it. And it's one of them really irritating things that I still can't do. Probably innocuous to you, but you put a video up once of your foot. Beautiful foot it was, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And it's almost like a Mexican wave through your toes.
Yes, I know.
It's the best way to describe it. And I can never get my little toe up. It's so irritating. And I'm sitting here now trying to do it. But like you looked at your toes and it was like you sort of rolled them up. And then I know you do the towel drag as well. This is something for people to try at home. So presumably a good working foot can do the Mexican wave, i.e. lift all toes one after the other in sequence, and also pull a towel with the toes.
And do the toes. The other good one to do as well, if you like a physical challenge there, Frank, is lift the toes, and then drop the toes, lift the, is that right? Yeah. Drop the big toes, lift the other toes, lift the big toe, drop the other one. So you kind of get this inwards, upwards, sort of shizzle going on.
Big toes are flying. They're loving it. They're strong, but the little ones are just like, oh. But practice regularly.
Yeah, your children, actually, if you haven't put them in a lot of footwear in their, sort of infancy and stuff like that, the foot for a young person is incredibly dexterous. And let's face it, there are people out there, artists who weren't born with hands, who actually paint with their own foot, don't they? So that's actually, sort of shows how dexterous the foot can become. And I like to sort of term shoes almost like foot coffins.
Right.
Because some shoes can really inhibit the function of the foot in natural gait. So that's kind of, going back to the little 5 fingers Vibrams shoes. They enable my foot to move and articulate through the surface of the floor or ground underneath it so much better.
Can you summarise, Claire, for some handy little tips to take away from this? Maybe three top tips for a woman who maybe has signs of dysfunction in her pelvic floor. 3 top tips for her that can be exercise related, lifestyle related. Okay,
so I've got my first one. Get out of heels, high heel shoes.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah, I know. Now, even a trainer, like as in a sneaker, a trainer that you put on your foot, actually has a heel rise or heel raise on it. It's a little bit like the cereal industry in that we've been lied to over the years in thinking that, cereal is a good start to the day, and translate that into footwear. We are we've been brainwashed into thinking that a heel raise underneath the heel of the foot on a shoe is actually good. It's not. I think also the glute stuff, a lot of us are very like quad or thigh dominant. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're nodding your head there. So if you bang out like 3 sets of 10 squats and you feel the burn more in your thighs, you need to make a tiny adjustment to your position and actually get your bomb firing on the way up out of the squat. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3, walking and pelvic floor function. I don't think people understand that we were put on the planet to walk and roam the land and walk miles, in fact, actually, particularly going uphill, with that gait sort of stuff as well.
Got it. But those 3, if I nailed those 3 general tips you've just given me, got out my heels, got my glutes fired up, and got out walking every day, I'd be well on my way to a better functioning pelvic floor, wouldn't I?
Definitely.
Because the truth is, we are wearing heels. Our butt isn't working well, and we're not walking that much. So before you, it's the basic stuff to do first, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff I do actually is changing people's lifestyle. It is. You've got to change your habits that are causing the dysfunction to start with, or introduce better ways of working and better ways of moving. And it is it's a big education. I find a lot of light bulbs, go off when I start training people. So it's very rewarding actually working with people with this condition. I know that, I can give you a lot of examples of where men and women have waited such a long time before actually getting in touch with me as well. So I remember doing a pelvic floor class perhaps last year or the year before. And on my health screening form, I just ask a pretty open question of my clients just to say, what issues do you have in your pelvic floor? And just let them write an essay if they wish. And one woman was 17 years post-birth. So she's waited for 17 years before doing something.
Presumably until that child could drive them to go and see someone. It's a long time.
It is, yeah. So I like the fact that we can now have quite open discussions about the pelvic floor, but we still, there's still a couple of I think we're still a couple of generations behind before it's not an icky topic, or it's one of those sort of topics that just women and men actually just get on with and ignore the symptoms and try and that sort of plaster type effect where wearing, because let's face it, like wearing incontinence pads or whatever it is, it's basically an adult nappy. Yeah.
And I don't like changing nappies.
No, you've been through that.
Still there. We're just getting onto the potty now with the youngest one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think I'm sticking with 2. I don't want any more kids. So I don't think I'm going to go there again. So it'll be a relief. It'll be a day that we celebrate. Me and the wife will go somewhere and just scream out loud, probably. And then look forward to the new worries, I guess. How's your life, Claire? How's life in Nottingham, Derby, the places you're hanging around now? How is life?
Oh, yeah, all good actually. Yeah, I can't really complain. Quite busy with clients and stuff at the moment.
What is your average week at the moment? I'd like to share that.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 classes on my timetable now. That's a mixture of pregnancy, postnatal, fitness and Pilates type classes. And clients, I open up my clinic on a Tuesday. Only between 11 and 5. So I've got a fairly booked out one-to-one sort of program. I do also Skype sessions as well, which are good. I really like Skype sessions. I mean, I like chatting to people over the internet as it is anyway. Obviously, like people that I know, not just random ones.
Well, you can do it these days.
I know. Yeah, everything's accessible, isn't it?
Be whoever you want, Claire. Be whoever you want.
But yeah, I do enjoy the Skype sessions, sort of helping people with abdominal separation or pregnancy ailments and pelvic floor and stuff like that too. So it's just nice to be able to, if someone's found me on online somewhere, but they can't necessarily travel to me, that's just another option, I guess, really, yeah. And another thing, as you say, like we met firstly, didn't we, at one of my workshops that I did. I can't even remember when that was now, Frank, actually. Yeah. But I would say that when I met you down there, actually, Frank, I would say that you're a very conscientious instructor.
Nice.
There you go. I still have memories of you in the classroom there.
I don't know whether that's good or bad when someone says.
No, it was. No, I could tell that you had a real interest in pre and postnatal exercise.
I bet you
I don't know
actually.
whether that was
it would have been because my oldest daughter's 5, so I'd imagine my interest sparked around that time, obviously, or when we were thinking about having children, because I've always worked with women. And up until that point, probably for the first 5 years of my gym career, I kind of just avoided any conversation about if someone got pregnant. I went, "Oh, go and see someone else," or the mention of a pelvic floor, I'd be running out the door, coming up with excuses. Yeah. So I think it sparked my interest in knowing that you need to learn that stuff, and I knew that you were one of the best, Claire, if not the best.
Oh,
and
very much.
It was you coming to Surrey, so we got involved, and it was always very helpful, and that's why I continue to follow you now. But you're still doing those workshops around?
Well, I'm sort of taking my, shall we say, like the teacher training side of things more online, actually, because I feel as though my audience has widened. So it's more of an international sort of audience. So I've got my Your Pelvic Matters teacher trainers, pretty much worldwide now. So that's it's going great guns, actually. It's sort of, I get a real mixture, actually, of instructors booking on that program. Some who are just in the very infancy of their pre and postnatal sort of journey, shall we say, and then others that have been in the industry longer than me. And the discussions we have about my approach are just fascinating. I'm not brainwashing them, but it takes a couple of times for me to explain the connection between this, and this, and they go, of course, yes, you're right, Claire. Damn it, I just need to hear it 4 times. And they go, yes, that's it. Yeah. So, yeah, light bulbs go off. And I think it really improves the way that some instructors teach as well. Yeah, because they're a bit more aware of the body.
Definitely helped me. And it helps our clients, really, doesn't it? I'd encourage any trainers, if they are listening, even if it's not necessarily intent to be your speciality, which it was never mine. It was just an awareness and a confidence to listen and accept questions and hear, like you said, different people talk about different methods. How you do it clearly works. It's just how you apply it to humans, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for letting me come to your course, first of all.
Oh, no problems at all, there.
And then letting me stalk you on Instagram ever since.
Oh, that's okay.
I will continue to do so. Links for all your stuff I'm going to put in and around wherever people are listening, watching or writing this. Claire Mockridge, you can follow her, watch her, even just to see where you walk on a day. Your lovely area, man.
It's not bad here in Derbyshire, is it? Yeah.
It's lovely. Absolutely lovely up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is nice, yeah. Yeah, you should come for a visit.
Yeah, why not? In my Vibrams. We can have a Vibram party.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I've got to learn my tricks first, though, before I...
Yeah, so I'll set you some homework.
It's so irritating, but I'm going to try it. And I will become the footman. Foot with Frank is the next business coming. No, thank you so much. Have you got any parting words for any listeners?
Not really. No. I think that's it. Just don't discount the foot. I think is a big element of pelvic floor function. And it might be just a very new concept for some people. So if you're noticing you're getting bunions or foot pain and you're getting pelvic floor weakness, then there's probably a correlation there, I would say.
Got it. Thank you so much, Claire. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you for joining me on your lunch break.
Oh, it's absolutely fine. Lovely chatting.
Good luck with the rest of it. Keep wearing blue, mate. It suits you.
I will do. Oh, great. You too. Take care. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Fit with Frank podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now so you can be first to be notified of new episodes released every week where Frank dives deep, chats with some of the finest guests across the health and fitness industry alongside inspiring stories from people just like you so we can inspire and hopefully empower you to lead a happier, healthier lifestyle. Have fun.